welcome into week 8 of the Frostburg Sports Awards, and we're going to kick things off with Michaela Westree from track and field, who had a very fine day in the throwing events on Friday at Glenville State. Michaela, I just want to get some of your thoughts on your performance this past weekend.
I mean, I'm very proud of myself. It's my first outdoor season here. Good 3 weeks of throwing. I'm actually just really proud of myself.
You got a 42.33 meter throw in the hammer throw to get first place in that event, but what we believe is a top 5 throw in school history as well.
Really?
It is. The school record is actually only 42.83, I think. So you're right there and chasing that record that was set back in 2018. To get that final throw for you and to win that first place, obviously you're just now learning about the significance of the throw, but coming out with the hammer, how big is that for you?
I mean, it's pretty big, especially considering freshman year. The first time I ever touched the hammer or knew what it was, I could barely rotate. So from learning how to rotate 2-3 years ago to now actually being able to throw, it's pretty impressive. I'm very impressed with myself.
You talked about being in the outdoor season and the benefits of having, being outside and being able to get out of the indoor, and your first time here actually since you've been at Frostburg to be able to throw outdoor, obviously with the COVID complications, throwing a wrench into things, but being in Frostburg, obviously the weather presents many difficulties with practice and being able to get outside. So you've basically been indoors almost the entire winter, but how was it to be able to get outside and finally feel the fresh air and be able to throw, not inside in a compact space?
It's easier because we're not competing for space and we can throw the fun stuff. The fun stuff happens outside. Indoor, it's a little rough on you. But then you get outside and all the roughness pays off.
In the discus then, in your other event, you finished in second place and had a throw of 5 meters more than your previous high in your last throw of the meet. What was it on that last throw that you just kind of, gave a big grunt or something and finally got that oomph to get over that extra 5 meters? Or was it, just this is my last throw and I'm going to put everything I have into it?
To be honest, it was very cold. And a lot of us were like, it's time to go. And I was like, well, if I'm going to leave at like 10 o'clock at night for a 3-hour drive home, at least make this last one, worthwhile. Like I wasn't there all day just to,
wanted to talk about your throwing coach, John Kearns, who's a living legend here at Frostburg with some of the throws that he had, obviously, last year. Him and Mike Belker both just fantastic when they were throwing. Now he's transitioned into the coaching world. How has he been as a coach for you guys? We obviously know him. He's sort of the lovable giant here around Frostburg. Is he similar in his coaching style as well?
Yeah. The hard part for me was when I came back from being away for COVID, he wasn't my teammate anymore, so that was kind of hard, but he's still a great person, He just add coach, and then still John, but Coach John.
Another one of your teammates wanted to talk about in Alexa Bradburn, where you guys have sort of, carried the torch for the throwing program for the women here for the past couple of years, and she certainly has earned her own accolades. Obviously, in the indoor season, you guys were going back and forth, and it was sometimes a battle for first, second, third place between just the two of you guys. For us, what is she like in training? And we talked to her a few weeks ago here on the Sports Awards. But, for you guys to have sort of that competitive balance where, you obviously want to do well for yourself and get the highest place, but you also want to, be there for your teammate and support them to do the best that they can.
When it comes to practice, we really, if I notice something that she can work on and that she doesn't notice, like, of course I'm going to mention it because, one, we're on the same team, we're doing the same sport, we're in it together. And then when it comes to competition, there's still that, hey, your steps are a little slow, make sure you get left, that kind of stuff. And the funny thing is, we threw at states together our senior year of high school.
I wanted to talk about as well in some of those indoor meets this season, and we're competing against some of the Division I schools, and very accomplished track and field programs. I mean, Youngstown State comes to mind as one of those that really was up there in terms of some of the times and the distances they had. How is it for you to compete against those schools where, going in, it might be in the mindset of, well, I'm not going to be at the top, but I can, do the best I can, show some of these other people that are, at a higher level from scholarship point and from, an accolade point. Is it, getting the best that you can? Is it looking at them and seeing what they do and, taking some of that for you? Is it sort of just, enjoying the experience?
I'm always happy to be there, always happy to be here. When it comes to the D1 athletes, like, that stuff's impressive. Like, really, like, wow. It's just amazing what they can do and to see the possibilities of things I can do. Because, we're all doing the same stuff, They may just have different facilities and different coaching techniques than what we have here. But, I'm sure I can throw 20 meters in shot put at some point.
Going into the latter part of the season, obviously, our first meet and competing and kind of just getting the feet wet, and obviously being the first time outdoors. But looking ahead and going into the conference championships where, we talk with swimming and tennis and track and field and these, more individualized sports about, everyone will have a chance to compete, but you're looking at the entire conference and seeing kind of where people stand. Is that something that you do as well? Obviously, you see some people at the meets, or is it more just you take things one meet at a time, focus on improving yourself throughout the season without focusing too much on that end thing?
I don't really focus on the end too much because I'm confident in my abilities that I'll make it to conference. If I don't, it happens, I still have next year. Yeah, next season. Not the next season. Next outdoor. But, 1 meet at a time. Because there's still practices, there's still things I can work on, still things I don't know how to do. I also don't look at the standings for conference because they take top 16. And when you look at a list of maybe 40, 50 different women, you're like, oh my God, I will never make it to top 16. But then you might just have that one good meet and you just really make it. And then, got to peak for conference.
Well, Michaela, thank you for coming on today to talk to us. Obviously, you've got your classes and the practices that you mentioned coming up, but we appreciate you being here, and congratulations once again on your weekend. Hopefully, we can see some improved times, and who knows, maybe you break a record here.
That's the goal. I got one under my belt. Could go for another.
All right, well, next up, we will have men's lacrosse as they swept the Male Award and Coach of the Week Award, so be sure to stay tuned for those interviews as well. We are back on the Frostburg Sports Awards for Week 8 with our Male Athlete of the Week, Bubba Love, who had a goal and 3 assists in men's lacrosse. First win of the season against Walsh. Bubba, just want to get some of your thoughts on your performance and the team's performance overall in getting your first win.
I thought we fought hard, We came away with the win. It wasn't pretty at all times, but did what we had to do, got the win at the end of the day.
Often is the case in lacrosse. It's not always pretty, but getting the job done. In this game, it was your career high, actually, the 3 assists for you. And it seems, in the early part of the season where obviously losing the amount of seniors in the attack last year, coming into this year, you're sort of a facilitator and kind of an all-around. You've obviously got Jake Bowman behind the goal and, Austin Sipes coming in, making plays, Matt Ward coming in from midfield, and Tanner Donaldson from midfield as well, where, it's a different balance from last year, but the pieces are still there. How have you kind of adapted into your role this season in terms of stepping up and sort of being a leader for this unit?
Last year I got to play with Paul and Jason and all of them, so I got to learn from their experience and kind of watch them and see what they did to succeed.
Did they impart a lot of knowledge on you? Obviously, when you talk to them, they're both kind of quiet guys, at least off the field, but on the field, were they pretty vocal with you guys in terms of, in practices and games where they're always kind of giving pointers? Were they those types as well?
Mike Sipes particularly, he gave me a lot of pointers, as a freshman and sophomore to grow off of. Paul was less vocal, but you could learn from example just watching him play.
In the early part of the season, it was a kind of a tough start for you guys. The Lake Erie loss at home by 3, and then a really good Tampa team down in Carolina. For that early part of the season for you guys, obviously, you never want to lose, but it's kind of learning experiences. And I remember when, Max, who's our cameraman, and I were up statting that Lake Erie game. We went down to the field and heard some parents, and, they said that's the eye-opener game for you guys of obviously losing that amount of leadership and coming into this year being ranked to start the season. That was sort of, this is where we need to kind of kick into gear. Is that sort of the same that you guys felt for those couple weeks?
Definitely. Those were humbling experiences, to say the least. And we just had to learn from them and get back on our feet.
For you personally, your brother played here, obviously Spencer, the all-time goal scorer in Frostburg history. From just your standpoint of being in the family, has that added any kind of pressure on you for this team, or you kind of just like to think of yourself, if you're your own person, you do what you do on the field, and it's not really anything that really affects you while you're playing?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it added any pressure to me, honestly. We're two different play styles. He's more of a ball hog. I'm just kind of like to pass the ball more.
As evidenced by your 3 assists in the game. We go into the next couple weeks and playing the game against Chestnut Hill at Homewood Field at Johns Hopkins. Certainly, sort of a mecca of lacrosse in a way with, Hopkins and their standard. Going for you guys, what's going to be the preparation going for that? Obviously, Chestnut Hill not having the results that one would expect this year, but obviously still a very tough opponent. What's the preparation for you guys? Going to that field, a neutral game against a tough opponent at a very, very nice field.
I think it's just like same thing as yesterday's game. We just gotta get back to the basics and do what we know best, and just go out there and perform.
All right, Bubba, thank you for coming on today. Obviously, you've got your classes and practices, and now games are going to start being twice a week, so really appreciate you being here. Congratulations on your performance in the win this past week.
Thank you for having me.
All right, next up we will have men's lacrosse head coach Steve Gardelman, who wraps up our awards as the coach of the week. So thank you for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for the next interview. Wrapping up week 8 of the Frostburg Sports Awards for 2022 is Steve Gardelman from men's lacrosse. Picked up their first win this past weekend against Walsh. Coach, how good does it feel to get a win on the board finally for the season after a couple of early tough losses?
Yeah, no, it's great. You learn a lot from the losses. We learn a lot from this win as well. But it's good to have the monkey off the back and kind of feel like, not that it was never worth it in the beginning, but now it's just like, all right, it was all worth it. The effort we've always been putting in turned into a result that we've been looking for. So it was really nice to see for the guys.
In that game, a 9-7 win, and you guys, first quarter was real back and forth. It tied 3-3. You guys took advantage in the second quarter in the early third, getting out to an 8-3 advantage, and then Walsh sort of started fighting their way back, got back into the game to the final 9-7 scoreline. A lot of that was in that fourth quarter. For you guys, and you kind of alluded to it, was it those first 2 weeks where you're kind of learning how to lose and how to play in a way, and to come out on top, this was the learning how to win game. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's probably pretty accurate where, they were playing a good zone against our offense, so the pace wasn't what we like to play, so to say. So we had to kind of identify, what we're going to be in that game where, the wind comes out of the sails a little bit in the flow of the game. So they did a good job in their game plan. The face-off X was competitive, so there was no, tilting of the field, so to say. I thought our rod did a really good job, but overall is, the turnovers, we had about 25 turnovers in the game, so that's going to give chances for another team to do what they do, and they're a good team that took advantage of the extra chances they kind of got, and it makes the defense have to play into a tired state versus their normal, revved up, full tank of gas, so to state. So those are the things we have to learn of, when to stay aggressive, when to value, and when to just, run a clock down to 60 and roll a corner, and that's the best move for that situation, especially in the zone set. So I think it is learning how to win. It's also learning, how to, keep the pedal on the ground, so to say, the pedal to the metal, and, understanding that no team will just give us a win just because we're winning at some point in the game. People don't lie down in Division II. People don't lie down in any sport, really. So that's also the learning curve there is, making sure that we respect what they're going to bring to us in every moment.
Wanted to talk about the attack real quick, and Bubba Love, who was our player of the week, and obviously had a great day sharing the ball around and making some really good passes. Jake Bowman behind the goal, a couple of goals for him. Joey Boros, a couple of goals for him as well. Tyler Dooley and Austin Stipes adding a goal in here and there. Tyler kind of stood out to me as well, where he did a lot of the little things really well, picking up ground balls and capitalizing on other guys when they couldn't find the net. And as a transfer coming in to the program, obviously learning everyone, but just a solid day for him and the attack where Obviously the ball wasn't always going in the net, but they did a lot of the little things correctly, aside from obviously some of the turnovers.
Yeah, and it's a game of ebbs and flows. So we talked how competitive that first half quarter was, and we did pull away to stretch that lead pretty well. So we had our big moment of runs, and then the turnovers did come into play a little bit. That was a glimpse. There's going to be about 15 turnovers a game. So 25 isn't an astronomical number, but it's higher than we'd much rather it be. So those maybe extra 7 to 10. Somewhere in that late game are the ones we got to clean up. And that's collective. That's not just the attack and the offense. That's in the clear and the face-offs as well. But those guys, Tyler Dooley to step up in the chance he got, getting his first start with us and stepping in, getting his first goal with us in a competitive game. And like you said, doing other things than just scoring goals. He's an outstanding shooter. I thought he made a sequence of decisions that led to a couple of Bubba feeds where he stepped in, draw attention in the zone, moves it one more, and Bubba's able to hit Austin Sipes on the cut, able to hit Joey Boros inside on the inside look. All those, I think, were hockey assists from Tyler Dooley. So I think he played really well within himself, kind of found his range a little bit early with the goal. He made a couple of nice saves. Then he was able to beat him for one. And it was great to see Jake Bowman riding and doing the stuff. He kind of worked through a couple injuries through the first couple of games, played through them, but feeling healthy, was back to riding and being a tenacious little, covering the field kind of guy. He's such an athlete. So it's great to see those three guys get after it. And Nick Norhausen got into the mix for us as well in that game and got to contribute as well. So I was happy to see that for all those guys.
You mentioned earlier about the defense, and one guy that stood out, especially from the stat perspective, Jake Sprecher got a couple of caused turnovers, some huge ground balls for the team as well. And one guy that, he didn't exactly stand on his head, but Kev Ruther really came up big in a couple moments. And just the confidence for him getting the win in that game after years of sitting behind Jack Marks. And this is his chance and his opportunity. He took it on that day. But for those guys you mentioned, with some of the turnovers and the way the game played out, defense had to step up and holding a team to under 10 goals for the first time this season, just, a confidence builder for that group.
Absolutely, in the extra opportunities that we gave them with a couple extra turnovers, they relish in that of like, all right, our chance. They put their dig in boots on, and they make the stands they have to, and that again, it's a game that there's going to be goals, there's going to be runs. We just got to withstand them and make sure that we counter with ours, and I thought we did a good job of getting ourselves back to close that game. Hey, they're going on the run, just recalibrating, settling down. I really liked what Kev was able to do, making stops in the clearing game, and he's able to come out late in the quarter. They had a fast break against the clear where they get a really full field look, really scary kind of look early on. That could have been a 3-2-1 kind of goal, and Kev actually gets himself into the mix and throws a little hit on a kid and puts him down. So it was great to see him be the lacrosse player and athlete he is, a beast in the weight room. The guy works so hard, so it's great to see how loyal he's been to this program behind Jack Marks, who was an exceptional goalie in his own right, now to showcase who Kevin Ruther is and be the leader for our guys. And Jake Sprecher, I think, also had 4 or 5 ground balls in the day too, so it was great to see him show out in what we know he has, which is every day kind of taking over on those attackmen, but really showing out in that game with some CTs and GBs for sure.
Looking ahead to this week and a big game on Tuesday against Chestnut Hill at Johns Hopkins Homewood Field, one of the iconic venues in college lacrosse. And last year, a really tough game against Chestnut Hill, a very close win for us on that day. Again, and we mentioned it with Bubba, but a team that, the results haven't necessarily gone their way this year, but we know they're a tough opponent, and, same could be said for us. Results haven't gone our way, but we know that we're tough and what we can bring. He mentioned that the preparation was going to kind of be the same, and everyone knew what their job was. Is that going to be the same for you coaching? Obviously, going Sunday to Tuesday, not entirely ideal given the schedule change, but, giving the guys the right amount of preparation versus rest and recovery.
Yeah, the practice plan will be key today of making sure, like you said, it's something where we get what we need done, but we have enough energy in the tank to go play a team that's can be really competitive. I think us and Chestnut Hill are in very similar boats of maybe we had expectations a certain way that aren't showing just yet. Doesn't mean that we can't achieve the goals that we've had set for our years, but the records aren't showing it. Doesn't mean that this lacrosse game can't be a 11-10, 9-8 kind of knock them down kind of game. So we got to be ready for that, and while we prepare, and what we do, it's all about us in the sense of we want to make sure that we're competing every day at practice, but we can't, wear ourselves out. So that'll be our balancing act for the coaching staff of what adjustments and coverages might we need to talk about and install in a short period of time. But for the most part, it's going to be just re-emphasizing the foundations of what we've done so much and so well. So it could be a game of us just going out and playing. We have to respect what they do. They have some really good players, some really unique schemes that we have to respect those nuances of the game, which will be the key for us as a coaching staff. But otherwise, it's get some vibes going, get the sticks going, let's get some shots, get some saves, bang the bodies a little bit. But again, we got to keep enough energy in the tank to get after it. And it's still a bit of a trip too. We're both going to be traveling down there, so we're back on the bus, getting in there, and once we get off, hopefully it's going to be something that goes our way.
All right, Coach, thank you for coming on today to come and talk to us. Obviously, you're kind of sandwiched in between a couple of games here this week, but we appreciate you coming on, and congratulations on the win. Hopefully you can pick up another one this week and continue to ride that through the season.
Yeah, thank you so much. Always enjoy being on.
Absolutely. So next week we'll have a new set of athletes and a coach, so be sure to watch next week as well. But for now, go Bobcats.